Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. So I've titled my talk, Time is Money, Communication is Wealth. We all know about time is money. That's something we all use it all the time, and it's true. Time is money. If you put in the time, you make money. But the part that people never seem to ever tell you about is that communication is wealth. Now, wealth could be social, could be political, could be financial, could be reputation. It's wealth, some kind of wealth. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial, but you usually find that people who are wealthy tend to be excellent communicators. People who tend to rise up in companies tend to be excellent communicators. People who are politically, they're very good communicators. They have to be. Otherwise, they're just not going to succeed. And the thing that is happening is that communication is becoming very important. And one of the reasons why communication is becoming extremely important now is simply because the technology is coming in where we're trying to figure out what is going to be our differentiator. What is our differentiator in anything? And one of the things that was interesting is Yankees, and this applies to anything in sports, in business, in politics, in anything. In sports, if you are a New York Yankees fan, they had a very good coach. His name was Joe Girardi. And Joe Girardi was fired and replaced with Boone, right? And the reason was that they were looking for somebody who could relate to players. Communication skills was what they cited, was the reason. That they were looking for a coach who could relate to the younger players that the Yankees had. And if they could not relate to it, they felt that Joe Girardi just could not relate to it. Because Joe Girardi had won a championship, so it's not like he doesn't know how to win. Communication was the differentiator. And they went and got this guy Boone, and as you can see, the Yankees have been doing really well. So communication applies in sports. Communication applies in just about everything. So communication is wealth. And today, my talk is about how do you become good at this? How do you become good at this? In business, you'll see players like Shark Tank is a perfect example about how good communication is. Like Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary, all of these people, Cochran, they got so many now. They're very good communicators. They get the point across. But not only that, but they want the others to communicate them effectively to see why they should invest in it. Shark Tank is, by the way, the best. It's a very good show to learn a lot from. Shark Tank. I love that show. And I like the way people come in and pitch their ideas. It's all about communication. They're judging them based on communication first. Then they'll look at, communication. Convince me why I should pay attention. Then they're saying, okay, convince me how you're going to make it grow. And what have you done so far? That's basically the whole structure of that show. And if you got some numbers, you got to communicate your numbers or communicate why your numbers are not good and why you need their money. Sometimes you have people come in, they really don't need the money. And these guys can easily see it, that they're just putting on the show just to get on TV. So communication is very important. Communication is very important for success. And before I continue, communication is evolving, right? Communication is evolving. And our communication, essentially, the trendsetters for communication really are presidents. Presidents are trendsetters when it comes to communication, because that's how our system works. They have to communicate in order to get elected. So presidents are trendsetters when it comes to communication. So if we look through the history, quick history of communication through our presidents, our founding fathers essentially were great writers. That was the primary means of communication, writing. They wrote amazing things, Declaration of Independence, Federalist Papers. They were great writers. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, I mean, you name it. These were amazing writers. These were great writers. People still read the Constitution. They were writers. Their writing is still relevant today. I mean, we essentially live by their writing. Then came the advancement of technology, and you started having railroads. And suddenly, Abraham Lincoln came along, and he completely changed the communication. Suddenly, you had to go out and deliver speeches. The Lincoln-Douglas debate. Without speaking ability, Abraham Lincoln would have never become president. And one of the things about Abraham Lincoln is that he got noticed when he gave his famous speech at the Cooper Union University. And after that, he essentially became people's second choice, because everybody had their first choice. And when the first choice started dropping out, they all liked Abraham. Yeah, we love him, but he can't be our first choice, so we'll make him our second choice. And then, as luck has it, people's first choice started losing, so they started dropping out, and suddenly Abraham Lincoln started accumulating more votes and eventually got the nomination and ended up winning the presidency. That's how he did it, was his communication skills. If he wasn't a great communicator, he would not have become president. Okay? So they complied with strategy. People like you, Abraham Lincoln. He was a likable character. Abraham Lincoln was a very likable man. He said, go for it, becoming people's second choice. Because they knew that nobody was going to get the majority. And as each one they had to drop out. They dropped out, and suddenly Abraham Lincoln became their first choice. Again, they couldn't get it, dropped out, and then Abraham Lincoln ended up winning the election. That's the brief history of it. But it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't a great communicator. So he changed it. Suddenly, writing was no longer enough. You had to go out and give speeches. And transportation technology had a lot to do with that. He could go from one city to another city because of railroads. Okay. Then you move forward, and you get to the radio age. And the president who pretty much dominated that was FDR. And now he basically started this fireside chats. Fireside chats were a little different. He couldn't get in front of people and start yelling, screaming, yelling and give this passionate speech. It had to be much more comforting. And it was a different medium. The technology had changed. Suddenly radio. You could, beam the radio and people could listen to Franklin Delano Roosevelt throughout the country. And suddenly that had to require different kind of ways. It needed to comfort people. Radio was a much more intimate type of a way of communicating, where you are like communicating like you're having a conversation with somebody. So that was a different kind of a medium, where you're communicating like you're having a conversation. So that radio helped evolve. So suddenly radio got into the communication. And then came the 1960s with John F. Kennedy. Perfect. Made for TV. TV was basically designed, and John F. Kennedy was the perfect president for that. He was handsome, he was telegenic, he was articulate, he was humorous, and he knew how to command an audience on TV. Perfect. Just perfectly made for TV. So suddenly, you had to be good on TV. Then came Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan essentially knew the stagecraft. I mean, if you look at Reagan's speeches, there was a stagecraft. Like, he did not go into some auditorium or some hall or some hotel ballroom and say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall in that Berlin. No, he got in behind the Berlin Wall and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Stagecraft. Worked. Then we come to the present time. Donald Trump, master of social media. He just, boom, tweets, one tweet, tweets, constant tweeting, constant tweeting, left and right. It's all Trump all the time. He's completely changed the way presidents communicate now. That if you're the president, you're communicating all the time. All the time. You're communicating all the time. And that's how the communication is evolving. So presidents have a lot of influence in the way we communicate. Communication has become very important. So the question is, why is this so important now? Why is this so important? And the reason it's so important is, it comes down to is, the reason it is so important is, so why become an effective speaker? So if you're here and saying, okay, but like, why should I become an effective speaker? Now, I'm not going to distinguish between public and private. Just say speaker, because today there's no distinction between a public and private. There is one type of speaker. Okay, so it's public. There's no such thing as public. Everything is public. Somebody can videotape you and put it on YouTube. So there's no such thing as private speaking anymore. And it's the economy, stupid. You know that famous quote by James Carville that he put it on the campaign headquarters. It's the economy, stupid. So I stole it and I said, yes, it comes down to the economy. And everything is driven by the economy. So if you look through the history, we went from agricultural to industrial, and industrial to knowledge. And now we are essentially in attention economy. Attention. If you don't get attention, you don't do well. And this is something, and that means that if you are a CEO of a company, you got to get attention. Because if you're not getting attention, your stock may not go up much. You're hurting your stock. You got to get on TV. You got to get on Twitter. You got to get on Instagram. You got to be everywhere. Attention economy is what we're in. An attention economy means you got to be an excellent communicator today. Excellent communicator. So communication has gotten very difficult today. You not only have to be good in a written form, you not only have to be good in giving a speech like this, you not only have to create a stagecraft. Well, I don't have that here. I just saw that the Blackstone CEO came out with a book, and he's going on television, he's going on podcasts, he's going everywhere. Today, you got to communicate everywhere. Everywhere. Communication is boom, everywhere, because it's an attention economy we're in. Whoever gets attention wins. Attention it's all about. So, so the first person that kind of really, outside politics, politics is all about attention, but once we realize, like, who was the first person who really, really made attention economy so popular, was Lee Iacocca. If you remember, Lee Iacocca essentially saved Chrysler because he was out there in our face. Every time you turn on a television, I think it was the K car or something, he was the guy that, if you find a better car, buy it. Remember that? If you can find a better car, buy it. He was just right in our face saying, look, I believe in this car, and if you can find a better car, go buy it. Lee Iacocca essentially changed the way CEOs, there was the attention. He got attention. And he got Chrysler out of the jam, right? Chrysler was basically needing a bailout under Jimmy Carter administration. And it was Lee Iacocca, and he just passed away recently. But Lee Iacocca kind of realized that CEOs, you can't be sitting in the ivory tower anymore. You got to go and capture attention. So Lee Iacocca basically did that. Okay, so then people said, like, okay, what would be the next big thing that happened that would say that? Now, there are people who get attention and all that, and some of them justifiably. But when somebody does, like, Lee Iacocca is not a pitchman. He's a CEO. When they do something different that's getting attention, you can get attention. Like Einstein got attention because he's Einstein. Okay, so that's not attention getting. But if suddenly Einstein says, I want to get attention something else, then that's different. So Lee Iacocca essentially, CEOs don't do that. Lee Iacocca did, and he helped Chrysler. And he basically said, I got to take it directly to people. That one-to-one contact that he developed. People bought a K car. So a lot of people here, you're old enough, probably bought a K car at one time. They were good cars. Then came this another pivotal moment. Arnold Schwarzenegger. How many of you remember that? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Conan the Barbarian. The Terminator. Most of us remember him with these two things. I'll be back. I'll be back. That's his famous tagline, right? Slogan. I'll be back. I'll be back. And hasta la vista, baby, right? That's it. The next thing we know is he's the governor of California. He got the attention. How does that happen? Attention. Attention, 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 attention. Suddenly he's the governor. 2 terms. He won 2 terms, governor of California. Not once. Then the current president, no experience, no political experience, lot of experience in, you're fired, you're fired. And then everybody, and then we all spoke out and said, you're hired. And now he's the president of the United States. Okay? No experience. But why? He got a lot of attention. He knows how to get attention. And now that he's president, he still keeps getting lots and lots of attention. And then, if you follow the trajectory, my prediction is the future president of the United States is this, Kim Kardashian. Okay? May not be in 2020, but watch me. She is positioning herself to be the next president. And here's her quote. I think it would be so much fun to be in the White House. Now, I think she was talking about when she was going to visit, but I'm going to take it as like, I'd like to be there making decisions. So here it is. Kim Kardashian. That, Kim Kardashian, yeah, the one we all make fun of. She could be the next president. If I ever put a bet on what Republican woman is likely to become the president of the United States, it's not going to be Nikki Haley, it's not going to be Ivanka Trump, it'll be Kim Kardashian. Because she has she gets attention, okay? And now she's basically aligned herself with the White House and freeing people out of jail. I mean, she's building herself to have a real career in politics. Don't bet against it. You'll never make money betting against the Kardashians. Okay, so then brings up to these other 3 folks. You know these guys, right? That's Charlie Munger. He's 95. That we know in the middle guy. It's Bill Gates. And then the right we all know him is Warren Buffett, 89. What do? They're always getting attention. Warren Buffett is 89. Think about it. Charlie Munger is 95. They haven't quit. They're still getting attention. I see him on CNBC more than I see in CNBC like every few weeks. He's always on CNBC, and somehow he always gives an interview to Becky Quick. And he's always on CNBC. He's always on these business channels. He's getting attention. He realizes that. He is the face of Berkshire Hathaway, this big corporation, Berkshire Hathaway. Does anybody know who else works at Berkshire Hathaway? No. It's all Warren Buffett. He is getting attention. He knows that if I'm not getting attention, then nobody cares about Berkshire Hathaway. He knows that attention economy is what it's at. And Bill Gates, even though he's not running any corporation, but he's running his charity, he has to keep getting attention to let people know some of the problems and stuff he's solving. Okay? Wealth. So he's building different kind of wealth. And the last one is, so what makes one an effective speaker? So now I kind of convinced you that communication creates wealth. So the question is, what makes one an effective speaker? What makes one an effective speaker? So the question is, what makes one an effective speaker? It really comes down to these 5 things. These 5 things, okay? So now this is like, kind of like what? It's you. You. Giving a speech is about you. You got to have something you want to say, something you passionately believe in, something that gives you guts to get in front of people and give your point of view. You got to be. It starts with you. This speech would not happen if I did not go to Middletown and say, I have something to say. Put me in front of these people and I want to give a speech. It starts with you. If you don't have anything to say or you want to say, you can't just wait to get in front of people and say it. It's not going to happen. It's not the audience that's the most important. It's you. Audience is important, but it's you. Audience, they don't know. Right now, if I'm not giving this speech and I swap it with somebody, you probably wouldn't care. There was another guy who was supposed to give a speech. Hey, if I replace him with, let's say, nobody would know me. But I said, no, I have to give this speech. It can only be given by me. I got to get on the stage. And that's how you have to feel about what you want to talk about. You've got to feel like this is the topic that I want to talk about. It starts with you. No speech ever can be effective if you don't think you want to give something. It starts with you. You want to give that speech. Only you can give that speech. Only you can reach these people. If you don't think that's you, only you can serve these people. It's you. So it starts with you. Find out what is it that you would like to get in front here and give that talk. Because if you don't have that, don't get on stage. Don't get on stage. Because people immediately will feel like, it doesn't have to be perfect. My speech isn't going to be perfect. But I want to be here. I want to give this speech because I have something to say. I want to serve people. And that's the feeling you got to have. The second thing is the audience. Now, this is kind of interesting. You've got to know the audience, right? Who is your audience? Now, sometimes you can't know the audience. So you got to kind of stick to your game plan. Like here, I really don't know who the audience is. I think here the audience is, based on it, that people want to learn more about it, right? People want to learn. But audience can be tricky. Could be audience of one, where you only want to reach that one person. You got to find out who is the most important in that audience that you have to reach. Everybody cannot, like, you can't go in there and say, I want my speech to be liked by everybody. Like one thing I do not do is I don't go and ask people, hey, did you like my speech? Did you like my speech? Liking a speech isn't what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to take some kind of action. Because if they're not taking an action, what does liking a speech really mean? Anything? They didn't do anything. It's a null speech. It doesn't do anything. So find out who is the real audience you're targeting. If there are 100 people in the audience, those are not really, those are attendees. Audience are the people that you are trying to reach. That may be whittled down to maybe 10. That's who you target. That's what you want to target. Because we all think that everybody there, you have to be likable. So a lot of people do not take risks because they are trying to be liked. But public speaking isn't about being liked. It's not about getting through the speech and then getting high fives. That's not what that's not effective. Effective means you got to achieve something. What are you achieving? Hey, you got 10 out of 10. Okay, so what does that mean? Nothing happened. Nothing happened. So be careful. Who is the audience? Who are the attendees? These are the attendees. You're all attendees. I don't know who's the real audience here. The real audience is the person, when I get to the end, who's actually going to do something. That's the audience. Right now, you're all attendees. I will know who the real audience is probably at the end of this talk. Because right now, you're all attendees. I will know at the end who the real audience is here. Okay? Because I don't know that much about you. You know, when you give a speech in a library, you don't get to know people. Anybody can show up. So it's attendees. And the real audience are the people who are going to do something. That's who this speech is targeted towards. Attendees are just here to listen. Audience is here to do something. They want to make some kind of transformation. So who is the audience? Now, lately we keep hearing this word audience of one. Audience of one. How many of you heard that? Audience of one. And this typically happens when somebody goes before a judiciary committee and they're only, or in front of the media, they're not trying to reach the media. They're not trying to reach the people. They're only trying to reach the president. That's audience of one. That's it. So they're giving a speech. If you remember Sarah Sanders, she would be in front of the podium saying, but she wasn't speaking to the media. She wasn't even like Kellyanne Conway and all these. They're not speaking to the media. They're not speaking to the people. They're speaking to only one person that matters, the president. That's audience of one. So they're pretty smart. They know who their audience is. When they get in front of the media, you think like, oh, they're going to answer the questions. No, they're not. That's not the audience. Because if she answers it to the media, she's not going to have that job. Okay? So then, once you decide that, yes, I want to give a speech, I have something to say, now I know who the audience is. What is my objective? Like, what am I trying to really achieve? And typically, I like to use this thing. There are three things you want to try to do in a speech. What you want them to know, right? Like I kind of started it, like saying time is money, communication is wealth. So this is the things that I want you to know. What you want them to feel. Like, why? Like, I gotta feel something about this. This is really important stuff. But if I don't do it, I'm gonna become irrelevant. So there's gotta be a feeling. And then I want you to do something. And doing usually comes at the end. Okay? Usually in my speech usually comes at the end. Right? That's what it first you gotta know something. Yeah. I need to see some head nodding. Then it's like, yeah, I gotta feel it, man. I gotta do it now. Feel. That feeling has to be there. That feeling, that gotta create that emotion. There's gotta be that feeling. And once that feeling, then you gotta close it by getting them to do something. And that's what the speech is about. That's the objective. What do you want them to know? What do you want the audience to feel? And what do you want the audience to do? So a perfect example of this speech, and if you ever watch it, is this famous speech that was given by a Harvard professor. Her name was Amy Cuddy. And Amy Cuddy is a professor. And she starts out the speech by giving people the science, right? So she goes into science and how people do not have confidence and how confidence is so important in success. So there's like bulk of the part is just knowing. She's setting it up. From knowing, she changes to feeling about her personal story, how she lost confidence after she got injured. And then at the end, she has people doing this famous power pose, if you remember. Power pose, like, Superman or Wonder Woman power pose that's supposed to make you feel like if you pose like that, immediately your body starts acting. It's like, it's not your mind, it's your body is controlling your mind, not your mind controlling your body, right? And if your body exerts power pose, then your mind immediately starts acting like you're powerful. So she started everybody doing power poses. So she constructed her speech to know, feel, and then do. Excellent. Watch that talk. The third thing, very fourth thing that's important is performance. When you're giving a speech, you are the difference maker, right? You're the difference maker. A speech is about performance. Performance is everything. And it's becoming even more important than it used to be. Performance is it today. Performance persuades. Performance is truth. People don't know what truth is anymore, but performance is truth. A perfect example is the Mueller hearing. Robert Mueller, reputable, a great American, goes in front of the Congress, but doesn't perform. And when you don't perform, it's not the truth anymore. We've been conditioned. Like it or not, we have all been conditioned. Media doesn't care about people who do not perform. It requires more words to say, well, this is what he really meant. Performance doesn't have to explain. If you perform, you satisfy everybody. Everybody's looking for a performer today. So when you're speaking, you got to craft a performance. Because if you're not performing, you're not resonating. Right? You're not resonating. So you got to find out, what is it that's going to create a performance? And we'll kind of talk about some 3 techniques that I have that will help you with your performance, because it's not the content. You got to know your content. That's given. Then you need to know your message. So I had it in my book, this book I wrote. I basically focus on the content, right? You got to know your content, because if you don't have content, then you don't know what you're saying. Then you got to turn that into a message. Take that content so that you can really crystallize it. What is it that you're really trying to get across? But that's not enough. Now you got to perform. Performance is, I would say, 50% of any speech. Performance is everything. So you got to. Now that doesn't mean you have to be an actor or an actress. We all perform differently. Because speech is very hard. Speech is really hard. Actors and actresses are very good at taking somebody's words and turning it into a performance. That's what they're good at. That's what they do well. They're so professional that they can take a screenplay and turn it into a performance. using method acting or whatever they use, method acting, and they can turn it into performance. That's how they're trained. But speaking is different. Speaking is like one and done. You only get one shot to do it right. This speech, I'm going to get only one shot to do it right. So the performance that I'm putting together is not like an actor. It's that of a speaker. There's a performance of an actor and there's a performance of a speaker. What I'm saying, this is what I'm feeling. This is me. Actors are so good that they can basically put themselves in somebody else's and perform that. That's not me here. This is me. This speech is all about me. I have to perform. Otherwise, my performance is not going to resonate. You're going to say, wow, he said it, but I don't think he really believed what he was saying. That's a kiss of death. So you've got to work on the performance. Performance is very important. And the last is you got to practice. This is hard stuff. Getting in front of people requires a lot of practice. And this is not just like, you got to practice for every speech you give. It's not just practice for the most important speech. It's every speech. Because every speech essentially is different. The audience is different. The dynamics is different. And I know it because I give speeches and I can take the same presentation, giving it to a different audience. The speech is going to be different. Because the audience also, your speech is not made by you. The speech is made great by the audience. If the audience is into it, you get into it. At some point, you get the audience up, then the audience, it's like a flywheel. They just take over, and now you're into it. You both share, it's like, in any speech, and a perfect speech of that, if you want to see it, an example is Bill Clinton when he, in the 2012 Democratic nomination, is on stage to nominate Barack Obama. You could see how he gets, that speech was supposed to be, I think, like 30 minutes. It was supposed to be like 30, 40 minutes. It turned out to be an hour and a half. And that's because the audience just brought out the best in him. If you ever watch that, it's a classic speech. I think that probably may be Bill Clinton's best speech that I've ever seen him give at the Democratic. I mean, he had that audience in his fingertips. I mean, you could see how much he was into that. That speech was only supposed to be 30 minutes, but who's going to stop Bill Clinton? And that speech went on for an hour and a half, and you can see the audience was into it till the very end. He was into it from beginning till the end. That's how powerful that speech was. So practice and practice and practice, and we're going to cover that. So I just wanted to kind of simplify it and say there are a lot of tips and techniques you hear about, do this. I wanted to kind of give you the overview. It starts with you. It starts with the audience. It starts with your objective. Once you have an objective, you got to know that speaking is different. It's about performance. It's content and message are fine, but at the end, it's the performance. The reason why Donald Trump does so well at rallies is he knows how to perform. He's a performer. Most foremost, Donald Trump is not a speaker. He's a performer. Donald Trump is not a speaker. Donald Trump is not a great speaker. He's a great performer. So there's a difference between a speech and a performance. Donald Trump is not an effective speaker. Donald Trump is not a great speaker. He's a great performer. And today, we reward performance more than great speeches. So how do you practice to become an effective speaker, right? So practice is very important. Okay. So one of the things we have is speech is a little different, right? There's a visual part, like right now you're seeing me. There's vocal, the way I speak, my voice. And the third part is the words. Now, there was a famous study done by this professor named Moravian that people cite, and they say that visual makes up 57% of the communication. Vocal is about 35%, and words only like 7%. So people always think like words are not important. That's not really true. What he's saying is that all of these three things are working. So let's just say The example that I give always is that when you see a car, a sports car, like a sexy sports car, let's say a Lamborghini, visually it's extremely appealing, right? Lamborghini, Countach Lamborghini, right? Very appealing sports car. Corvette, Lamborghini, really nice looking sports car. Then you hear the engine and you're like, wow, I can't wait to be in it. Vroom, vroom, that engine that really gets you even more excited. But the car essentially can't move that far if it doesn't have gas. But we never even see the gas. So the words are like your gas. It's the gas that has to keep the speech going. Without words, your speech is dead. Otherwise, you'll be like, I'm moving, but I'm not saying anything. My speech is going, I am stuck, I've got a brain freeze, I'm not moving forward. The words are not moving forward. I am not able to think what I'm going to say next. I'm not going to be able, I'm trying to come up with, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? What am I thinking? So as you can see, that words have to be moving. That's the gas that makes your speech move. But the processing part is the other way around. You're looking at it from a visual point of view on how I use my gestures, how I use my voice, how I vary my voice. All of these things add up to that experience. And words aren't really that important at this point. But without words, the speech goes nowhere. So again, you need the visual part is extremely important that we discussed the performance. It has to be integrated with your voice and with the words. Now, if you think about it, it's pretty difficult to do all that. But that's why you have to practice exactly how do you want to convey that feeling. And that's what makes speech work. That's what makes you an effective speaker. That's why you have to rehearse. And if you rehearse, it's not going to be something you can just do it like right away. There's a lot involved here. I mean, I am still in a learning mode here. I'm not saying I perfected it. I'm just maybe a little bit ahead of you, but not much. But this is like a lot of work here. You know, this is going to be a lot of work that you got to like be in control. You got to be in command. And the good news is this is not that difficult to do. The bad news is it's a lot of work. It's work. So if you want to become an effective speaker, you got to start simple stuff. It's work. And you've got to be your own critic. You've got to evaluate yourself. Other people are not going to evaluate. You've got to learn how to evaluate. And the best way, and I'll go into that. So how do you make your speech interesting? So now we talked about performance, right? So first thing is that less is more is one thing, right? Less is more. People cannot remember much after your speech is over. Nobody's going to remember much. 10%, maybe even less. As soon as you walk out, you won't even remember my name. It's that simple. So my name is Jay Oza. You aren't going to remember my name. So I'm going to repeat it again. My name is Jay Oza. Okay? Jay Oza. You're not going to remember much because life takes over after this. Right now, your attention is concentrated. But as soon as you leave, life takes place. Something else will take over and everything is going to be forgotten. Most of people forget immediately after you leave. Some people may remember it because you're going to talk about it to somebody. The only way you're going to remember this if you talk about this with somebody else. That's the only way you're going to remember this. Otherwise, this is one and done. This is one and done. So when you're giving a speech, you want to draw people into you. How do you do that? Okay. Always use your own personal examples first. If you have a good one, use it. Personal examples carry the day because that's you. You don't have to think too hard. Now you just have to perform that. So I just gave a talk recently, and I was talking about packaging. And I had to come up with an example, like packaging. How do I talk about packaging? So I came up with an example that was personal to me, and it's when my wife asked me to go get tomatoes. And I said, I went and got tomatoes. She wanted me to get tomatoes for something she was cooking, and she needed tomatoes. Said, Jacob, go get some tomatoes from ShopRite. So I went to ShopRite and I said, I'm like, oh, I was watching basketball or something. I said, right now? I said, yeah, okay. Okay, I'll do it. So I went and got the tomatoes. I want to just get in there, get the tomatoes, and get back home quickly. So I went and got in. I saw these tomatoes. I picked these tomatoes, very nicely packaged, saran wrap, and you see them all the time, right? But then I said, okay, before I looked, let me take a quick peek on the price. It was $3.49. And I said, wow, $3.49 for tomatoes? I said, I know tomatoes are, $3.49 is kind of high. And then I saw these tomatoes on stock, and they were $1.49 a pound. And they look red. They look nice. So I said, will my wife notice? Let's try this. Let's try this experiment. So I took one of those plastic bags, put 4 or 5 tomatoes on a stalk, packed it, came home. She didn't notice it. So packaging is extremely important. How we packaging makes us not think. And my point was that that's how you package yourself. That if you package yourself well, then your interviewers are not thinking. So you see what I did? I used my personal example. Personal example. The other thing you can do is try to create something that sounds a little original. That little original. It's not, but it's like, it's something original, but it's like something that people will remember. So I gave a talk to college students this spring. And I wanted to give them the idea that we're in a business today of trying to persuade people, right? Persuade people. But how do you persuade people? If I just say that, we're in a business of persuading people, anybody can say that. So I had to come up with something original. So I said, when you break it down, most jobs either fall into one of 3 buckets. Either we are moving objects, moving bits, or moving heads. So moving objects, FedEx, right? So either we're in a FedEx business where we move objects, whether you're working in a restaurant or something, you're moving objects. You're moving objects. And now with the internet and IT, a lot of people are in the business of moving bits and bytes, NetX. But there are a huge chunk of people in sales and all of these other things, like what I'm doing. We're in the business of headX. We're moving people's heads. And I don't know. I said, oh my God, I hope they get it. And then I got feedback. And the kids really liked it. They really liked it. They commented on it. Said, I really now understand that we're in the business of headX. And I said, yes, it worked. Stop. I just didn't know whether it was going to work or not, but they just said, yes, headX. They got it. We're in the business of moving people's heads. So these are the kind of things that, the reason I'm pointing this out is you have to experiment, because there's no such thing as, you can be very conventional or you can take some chances and say, I got to come up with some new ideas. And if you do it convincingly, the audience is going to go along with it. The second thing is, one time I was giving a talk about negotiation. Somehow the negotiation came along. And here I had to talk about negotiation, like how negotiation works. So I have to give an example now. So negotiation is pretty tricky, right? We all want to negotiate. But I said, negotiation is very tricky. When somebody comes in and you think you got a deal and they say, we want to renegotiate this one particular part, what do? And I said, when I was in school, I learned a very important lesson. And it wasn't my lesson. It was my friend, one of my best friends. He got a grade, and he had a B plus. It was a statistics course in engineering. And he was not happy. He got like an A minus or something like that, A minus, right? He got a grade. And he thought that he should have gotten more points. And the professor made it very clear, said, look, this is a large class. I will have teaching assistant grade you. But if you turn over your paper, if you're gonna like, you know, try to get more points, then here's what's gonna happen. Since that person graded it, now you're giving it to me to regrade it. I'm gonna go through the whole paper, not the part that you're complaining about. And I may not be that generous in giving you points. So I told my friend, don't do it. You have a good grade. This is only the first test. Why do you want to blow it on a first test? Suck it up, accept the A minus, and just, do well on the next. But he was so stubborn. He said, no, I'm going to turn it in. He turns it in, and he drops an entire grade. And he was like, and because of that, it completely threw him off the loop. He stopped attending classes, and at the end, I think he just barely made a B. He ended up with a B in the course when he really could have gotten an A. And it completely threw him off the loop. That he just like hated that course. He said, I just can't stand this guy. And he stopped attending lectures, but he was pretty smart, so I think he did end up with a B. But he just never forgot that. And I said, in negotiation, you can't just negotiate one part if you're not happy with it, because then you got to live with it. If you bring it in, you got to negotiate the entire thing now. So you got to be careful. That's how negotiation works. So in any kind of negotiation, if somebody else gets involved, the whole thing gets negotiated, not just the little part. And then, so then you talk about other people's. Now here's something I usually bring in movies. Movies are very good. So this last year I gave a talk here, and I remember I was talking about a pretty difficult topic about inflection point. Either you're going to grow or you're going to die. And what happened was, how do I explain that? And movies are very good here. So I brought in this movie, Godfather. Now, Godfather 2 had nothing to do with it, but this is where you've got to use some creativity. And I used this famous scene about Godfather Part 2. You remember when Michael Corleone is going to Cuba to make a deal with Hyman Roth? And as he was going there, there was this rebels who were being cornered, and one guy runs away, takes a grenade, and he takes the captain out, kills himself and takes the captain out. Later on, when he's at a party with Hyman Roth, and the question is, was it a signal or was it a noise? And he expressed concern about what's going on. And Hyman Roth is, so Michael, what does that mean? Like, this guy, he said, I saw something interesting where this rebel, instead of being captured, he basically took out a grenade and he killed himself, but he took the captain along with him. And he said, what does that tell you? And he said, they can win. And Hyman Roth is not getting worried. And he said, this rebel activity in Cuba has been going on for a long time. And he brings his father into it, like, we saw this, but don't worry, it's going to pass. Don't worry about it. This is all going to pass. So Michael is seeing this as a signal. He's seeing this as a noise. Michael basically decides not to invest. And he gets saved because he did not invest in Cuba. Right? And he didn't lose his millions of dollars because he made a bad investment, because he saw a signal that there's something going on. He didn't feel comfortable. And Hyman Roth didn't. He thought it's like, this is just a noise. So I said, the good news is that he didn't lose any money. He didn't lose his shirt over this deal. But there was a bad news. He got pulled into Godfather Part 3. So people started laughing. So what I'm trying to say is that there's got to be some creativity that you have to get. And this requires work. You got to think about it. Is this the right place? So one of the things I'm not telling you here is this, that if you want to be an effective speaker, you got to draw things from different places. Okay? It's not the content alone is what you focus on. It's how do you make that content come alive. That's what your job is as a speaker. And if you do that, you're not only going to enjoy giving the talk, but you're going to have fun. Not only are you going to give a talk, you're going to have fun giving it. Because these are kind of examples people want to listen to. Like, how is he going to explain something so that I get it right away? That example is a very vivid example. There's a signal and then there's a noise. Who's right? Somebody's got to be right. As it turned out, Michael was right. The signal here indicates there's going to be a revolution. And if I invest, I'm going to get wiped out. He didn't invest. Boom. Saved him tons of money. He still remained the Godfather. Otherwise, he would not have been Godfather. Probably would have gotten whacked. So that's how it works. He did not invest. He said, I can't trust this guy. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. I just saw this guy. I just saw it with my own eyes. And he's trying to tell me, don't worry about it? Hell no. Not investing. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit here in this talk. Now I'm going to just give you some simple techniques to become an effective speaker. And this is all the stuff I do. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot here. First thing is I carry this with me. Record your ideas, your thoughts on this audio recorder. Okay? And once you have it, you can then refine it if you like it. Then you can refine it and you can record it either the video and post it on YouTube. That's what I've done. I do that quite a bit. I do that a lot. I do that, as you can see, if you go to, I've got like 500 videos out there. Many of these are thoughts that I've just recorded, right? Then you can publish it on YouTube if you think like, hey, let me just get it out. And don't worry about it. Most people don't care. If they care, ignore them, okay? And promote it. If you got something important that you made it, promote it. Let people know. Because, again, attention. You got to get attention. If nobody knows you, then, and this will help you with your job. It will help you even with anything that you're promoting. You're going to be viewed as a thought leader. You can't be a thought leader if you have no thoughts. You cannot be an idea person if you never show what your ideas are. And most ideas are probably not going to be good, but you never know. Occasionally you'll come up with some idea. The more ideas you come up with, that's how you come up with a great idea. The other way of becoming a good, effective speaker is learn to converse well with people. Not people you know, but just see how well you can, how good conversation you can have with people. This is what I found is that have it with strangers because they don't know you. And they are much more likely to, if you're interesting, you'll find out quickly whether you're interesting. So I have a very interesting way of conversing. I walk at park. I go to Homedale Park and I walk. And eventually there are a lot of people out there walking, and there are a lot of people who have dogs that they bring for a walk. And people with dogs tend to usually are guided by their dog. So sometimes the dog is eating something, so they don't go anywhere. And they're always looking to talk to somebody. You can just talk to somebody for a little while, take one thought, try that, boom, go away. After a while, you're going to see them again and again. They'll give you more time. You get more time. Then you'll find somebody to walk with. And this is how you kind of share ideas, communicate ideas. You learn to see what you think. And it's just the whole dynamic of conversation. There's nothing that helps me become a better conversation than going for a walk. Running is hard because people don't like to talk when they're running. Running is hard because running is a very solitary act. Walking is like you can walk with other people and talk. The other thing is you got to give talks like this. So get in front of people and give talks, just like this. Build up your muscle. Build up your speaking muscle. Get in front of people and give this type of talk. Another thing to do is analyze other talks. Today it's much easier. The good news, there's a good news and bad news. There are so many excellent speeches on YouTube. TED Talks are just perfect if you like 18-minute talks. But then you can also go to Google Talks. There's so many talks out there. Then there are debates that are happening. That will teach you how to take something complex and explain it in like less than 90 seconds. That's not easy. They do it all the time. Okay? Also try to copy some of the great speakers. Like I listen to motivational speakers like Les Brown and others, and I try to take away how much of that can I use in my speeches. So that's another way you can become an effective speaker, by copying some other great speakers. What are they doing well? Like this concept of know, do, and well. Know, feel, and do completely. Or you can look at like Steve Jobs' famous commencement speech, where he comes in and says, I have something to say, and he gives 3 stories about his life. And then there's a call to action, right? You can come up with a speech like that. You can come up with a speech. So I do a lot of speech analysis. The best way to become a good speaker is to analyze speeches, speeches, speeches of other great speakers. Feedback. This is very interesting. People always like to give feedback, and most of them are not good at it. So you ask for the feedback you are looking for. Don't ask them, so what do you think of the speech? That is not a good feedback you're going to get. Okay? You're not going to get very good feedback. The feedback you want is constructive. What is the part that would say, what is the part that you learned? Like, just ask them, what is the no part? What did you learn? What did you feel? And what did you want to do afterwards? That's it. You are controlling the feedback. Otherwise, if you open it up, you're going to get a feedback and you're not going to like it, and it's going to maybe throw you off completely useless. It's going to actually hurt you. Okay, you're going to take people's feedback. Because I always see people and they're always telling me to remove this slide or that slide. And I'm like, why would they, that's fine. And most of the time I ignore it. They mean well, but they've never given a speech. They're not going to give my speech. They don't go through the entire flow. So I don't take those. At the end, it's my speech. I got to take the risk. So taking a risk is another part of speech. Speaking is a risky thing, right? And that goes with the territory. Everybody's not going to like your speech, no matter how good you are. Okay? No matter how good you are. I am sure there are people who listened to the Gettysburg Address, didn't like it, saying, man, it's over already? Come on, man. The previous speaker spoke for 2 hours, and here this guy's only done in 3 minutes? That's it. That's it. I've had it, I'm sure there were people there who did not get it, because that speech was 3 minutes, the greatest speech ever given. And the previous speaker, the main speaker, spoke for 2 hours. So think about it. If you're getting into speaking 2 hours and then somebody the stature of the president only speaks for 3 minutes, you're like disappointed, right? So I'm sure there are a lot of people there that they didn't get on any of these news. Today, imagine they would be on Fox News and MSNBC, CNN. Man, I was really disappointed. We came here, there was a commemoration, and Lincoln just spoke only for 3 minutes. But did you understand what he said? No, but we were expecting him to. You were just getting settled down, and the speech was already over. So that happened. The last thing is raise the stakes. You've got to raise the stakes, because if you're not raising the stakes, then why would you work hard to improve it? So I'm raising the stakes, not only by coming here. Coming here is not really going to raise the stakes, because this becomes not high stakes, but it becomes an opportunity. You might know, last time I was here, somebody had connection to one of the colleges, and I got connected and I spoke there. So you all have friends. You all have. So this becomes not a high stakes, because there's nothing, I'm not going to, the library could just say, that's it, we're never going to invite this guy again. That could happen. So there's some stakes here. So there's some stakes here. The library may say, that's it, not inviting JOs again. But it could be a high opportunity. You might know somebody said, this guy really gave a very good talk, invite him. That's a high opportunity. So I always say there are 3 types of speech. There's a high risk, high opportunity, high stakes. And or it could be a high waste of time. Don't give the high waste of time speech, okay? High waste of time is not what you want. Prepare and take some risk. Because risk, when you raise the stakes, it's going to put out the best in you. It's going to bring out the best in you when you raise the stakes. Raising the stakes, it's all it's about. Keep that in mind. Okay. So at this point, I've given you a lot here. It looks like not much, but there's a lot here. So what we covered, why communication is important, attention. You cannot get attention. And one of the things I'm going to point out is I coach executives who are going for executive level jobs. And when I see the job description, one of the things I'm seeing more and more now is this thing called, we want you to be a visible leader, visible leadership. And a lot of the people that I coach don't seem to understand what that means. And I think what I tell them, what they're saying is, they want you to be out there. They're not just interested in, the table stakes is just getting the job done is not only, that's not the only thing. Now they want you to do more than that. They want you to be out there, giving talks, promoting the company, enhancing the brand. That's what it's all about now. And if you're not doing that, you're not only enhancing the company's brand, but you're not enhancing your brand. You're not even developing your brand. And they want people to basically do that. They just don't want you to come in and become a worker bee, just doing a job. They want you to be out there. And if you're out there, they agree that you could get recruited out, but they're okay with that. If that's the case, they'll just promote you. But what they cannot have is somebody coming in there is not helping the company's brand. Because company doesn't have much time. They need speed. As I said to them in my last talk, that today it cannot be you can talk the game. You cannot just be walk the game. You got to run the game. Speed is of the essence. Speed. And so at this point, I've given you a lot. But what this turns out now is that you have to do something. And this is a challenge that I'm going to ask you to do. This is very hard. It's very hard to the point where, since this is a public speaking, this is the most important slide. Because everything I've told you at this point isn't going to help. It's just a lot of words and a lot of this thing. This is where the rubber meets the road. If you really want to become a better speaker than you are today, and I mean it, better. Some of you are probably pretty good. If you want to improve incrementally, if you want to improve even better than that, you do this for 30 straight days. Just record a 3-minute video on any topic you want. Give your idea, the main idea. Hey, here's what I want to talk to you about. Here are the 2 things about why I think climate change, why I think, could be on any topic, anything you feel passionate about. Here's the reason why I think, vaping, right now, vaping seems to be the big thing, is e-cigarettes or cigarettes is a waste of time. Here we have cigarettes. Cigarettes don't kill. People kill themselves, right? Guns don't kill. I think the focus should be on guns, because guns are killing more people, but yet we're passing laws on cigarettes. I think the focus is misplaced, misdirected. It should be on guns. So you can pick any topic. It could be controversial. Don't worry about it. You can record it. And if you want to be really daring, post it on YouTube. And you'll find out most people will never watch it. But that's why you can say, hey, or you can have business ideas, or you could do a review on a movie. Tell them, hey, I just saw this movie, and here are the things I liked about this movie that I think. Here's a lesson that I learned from this movie. There should be some kind of a theme that you can close it out. So go watch it and see what you think. Or you can do a review of a particular rock band, concert you attended, something you observed, something you experienced, anything, traveling, anything. It's your topic. You can pick anything you want. The only thing you cannot do is you got to stick to it for 30 days. And if you do this for 30 days, you're going to feel good. You're going to become excellent. You're going to become better, and then you're on your way because you passed the 30-day challenge, right? And don't do more than 3 takes. They don't all have to be perfect. You're not going to come across like, Martin Luther King. This is just 30 days to get it done. Incrementally, you will start seeing improvement. I would say about 1/3 are going to be really good, 1/3 are going to be okay, and 1/3 are going to be bad. That's how it is, okay? So one thing you can do is, if you like this talk, you can drop Sheila an email. It's salgava@mplmaine.mtpl.org. And just tell her, I even wrote it for you, but you don't have to write it. I'm just writing it for you. That makes me look good. So I wrote it from a point of view that makes me look good. So I said, hi, Sheila. I want to thank you for the event you scheduled on 9/24, having Jay Oza giving us a talk on public speaking. Jay's talk was, of course, I'm writing it, informative, interesting, and actionable. He gave us some excellent ideas on what we can do starting today to become an effective speaker, effective public speaker, effective speaker. We would enjoy having Jay give future talks at this library. Perfect. That's it. Okay? So at this point, let me just conclude by saying, Becoming a speaker today is not a nicety, it's a necessity. Many of the things that are happening in this world, we don't control. It is possible in the future where you could actually have a robot that can give a very conventional, informative talk. But it's highly doubtful that a robot can be created to give a talk that brings all of these elements we talked about, right? The performance aspect. Robots are not going to be performing. This visual, that integration of visual, vocal, and words, and turn it into a performance that becomes memorable. Only we can do that. I just can't see a robot being able to do that. Robots are going to be good in many things, but robots are not going to be good at connecting with people. Only you can connect. That means you got to get on the stage and learn this. Not only to just be gainfully employed, but just to have a more productive life. Just imagine that you can get in front of people at the age of 70, 80. You can give a talk and you can make a difference. You can make a difference. This is a difference maker. When you get in front of people and give a talk, you feel good because you're helping people. You're showing people the possibilities. And when you're giving talk, you have power to influence, power to make a difference. And that's why communication, and specifically speaking, is so critical to our future. Thank you for coming and good luck.